The air in Strasbourg, the summer of 1518, wasn't merely hot. It was thick, oppressive, as if the very sky pressed down on the cobblestone streets. It was heavy with the ghosts of failed harvests, the hacking coughs of smallpox, and the gnawing ache of empty bellies. What happened there will amaze you and sadden you at the same time.
Hello, Curious Clan. Welcome, or welcome back. Let's get in.
This wasn't just a city, it was a tinderbox, its people bound by a fervent, almost desperate faith, and a chilling, pervasive fear of the divine. They whispered of Saint Vitus, not solely as a protector against disease, but as a stern, unforgiving punisher, capable of unleashing a dancing curse upon the sinful. And sin, according to the fire-and brimstone preachers whose sermons echoed through the narrow alleys, was everywhere, a palpable entity clinging to every soul. Then on a day that would forever mark history, July 14th, a woman known to history as Frau Trophius stepped out onto a cobbled street. No joyful tune filled the air, no festive laughter accompanied her, yet she began to dance. Not a graceful, deliberate waltz, but a fervent, uncontrollable jig. Her movements were jerky, spasmodic, as if an invisible puppeteer tugged at her limbs. Hour after agonizing hour, day after relentless day, she continued, her body swaying, twisting, leaping, pausing only when sheer physical collapse claimed her for a brief, shallow rest. But even then, the compulsion remained, pulling her back to her feet to resume the macabre, joyless ballet. The initial bewilderment quickly curdled into a mix of fear and morbid fascination. Within a week, the solitary dancer had attracted an unwilling troupe. 30 more joined her. By August, the number had swelled dramatically, estimates ranging chillingly from 50 to a staggering 400. Imagine the scene, a city once bustling with commerce and prayer, now consumed by this bizarre, terrifying spectacle. Bodies, once familiar and human, now contorted in unnatural ways, drenched in sweat, arms flailing wildly, their eyes vacant, distant, as if gazing into an unseen abyss. Their feet, once for walking life's paths, now pounded the unforgiving stone, bleeding through worn leather boots and wooden clogs, leaving crimson streaks in their wake. They screamed not in exhilaration, but in agony, begging for a release their own bodies would not grant. They appeared trapped, caught in a profound, waking trance. Rarely did they pause to eat, to drink, or to rest, their physical forms rapidly deteriorating under the relentless, ceaseless strain. For 2 agonizing months, this unsettling rhythm gripped Strasbourg, a city caught in a dance with death itself. The civic and religious authorities, utterly bewildered by this unprecedented crisis, turned to the learned Guild of Physicians. Their diagnosis, rooted in the prevailing humoral theory of the age, was astonishing: overheated blood. Their proposed solution was even more so: encourage more dancing. They truly believed that if the afflicted could simply exhaust the condition, if they could dance themselves free of it, the malady would pass. In a move that now seems tragically misguided, the city council took extraordinary measures. Carpenters were ordered to convert their guild halls into temporary dance floors. Stages were hastily erected in public squares, transforming communal spaces into arenas for this desperate display. Dozens of musicians were hired, their drums beating a relentless rhythm, their fiddles, pipes, and horns providing a haunting accompaniment to the sufferers' cries. Professional dancers were even brought in, their movements meant to encourage the afflicted to keep moving, to find their cure in continuous exertion. The authorities, in their earnest but naive desire to manage the crisis, inadvertently created optimal conditions for the dance to run its horrific course. But this intervention proved disastrous, a counterproductive measure that fanned the very flames it sought to extinguish. The public display and official encouragement, far from being a cure, became a potent catalyst. Onlookers, already primed by deep-seated superstition and fear, interpreted the frenzied movements as St. Vitus's fury made manifest, a terrifying divine punishment. More people, already susceptible due to the overwhelming societal stress, succumbed to the compulsion, joining the ever-growing ranks of dancers. What began as an oddity spiraled into a full-blown psychic epidemic, a terrifying testament to the power of collective belief and suggestion. Witnessing the catastrophe unfold, the Privy Council swiftly reversed its approach. The hastily built stages were dismantled, their purpose now seen as a curse rather than a cure. Music and public dancing were strictly banned throughout the city, a significant restriction in a culture where communal dance was central to social life. An exception was made only for honorable persons dancing at private events, provided they used stringed instruments deemed less likely to induce the mania, rather than the more rhythmic, trance-inducing drums or tambourines. Then, in a final, desperate act, the most severely afflicted were loaded onto wagons, their exhausted bodies jolting along the 3-day journey to the distant shrine of St. Vitus in Severn. It was there that Frau Trophia, the initial dancer, had reportedly found her own mysterious cure. At the shrine, priests performed ancient, solemn rituals. Tiny crosses were placed in the dancers' twitching hands. Special red shoes were gently fitted onto their bleeding feet, holy water was sprinkled, and crosses of consecrated oil were carefully painted onto the soles and tops of the shoes. Amidst the swirling incense and the drone of Latin incantations, the impossible happened. The dancing stopped. News of these miraculous cures, whether true or perceived, trickled back to Strasbourg, and slowly, inexplicably, the plague began to subside. Within approximately a week, the flow of suffering pilgrims decreased, and the city breathed a collective sigh of hesitant relief. Centuries have passed, yet the mystery of the dancing plague endures, a curious knot in the fabric of medical history. Was it ergotism, a terrifying poisoning from consuming rye flour bread contaminated with the psychoactive chemicals of ergot fungi? This theory, often cited for other historical anomalies like the Salem witch trials, seems plausible at first glance. Ergot does induce hallucinations, painful seizures, and muscle spasms. Yet, Dr. John Waller, a leading medical historian, argues vehemently against it. He posits that it's highly improbable for such a large number of people to react to ergot's potent chemicals in the exact same way, with the singular symptom of sustained, compulsive dancing. Furthermore, severe ergot poisoning typically leads to debilitating illness, including gangrene and a general inability to sustain prolonged physical exertion, symptoms that contradict contemporary descriptions of the Strasbourg dancers who, despite their pain, continued to dance for days. Waller also notes that the ergotism theory fails to explain why nearly all such outbreaks were concentrated along the Rhine and Moselle rivers, areas linked by water but with diverse climates and crops. The most compelling modern explanation, championed by Waller, is that the dancing plague was a profound form of mass psychogenic illness MPI, also known as mass hysteria or stress-induced psychosis. Imagine a population already pushed to its absolute breaking point, widespread famine, rampant disease, and unrelenting social hardship. This created an overwhelming crucible of stressors, making the populace exquisitely susceptible to such a collective psychological breakdown. MPA often involves a dissociative trance, a state characterized by a dramatic loss of self-control and an altered state of consciousness, which could explain how individuals continued dancing for days despite unimaginable pain and exhaustion. The deeply ingrained superstitious beliefs of 16th century Strasbourg, particularly the pervasive fear of St. Vitus's curse, provided a powerful cultural script, a recognizable framework for their shared anxiety to manifest. This wasn't a biological pathogen spreading disease. It was a societal wound bleeding out in a bizarre, involuntary dance. We see parallels even today in seemingly inexplicable fainting spells in schools or other mysterious collective ailments without clear organic causes. While the dancing itself is undeniably well documented in numerous contemporary records, the scrawled notes of physicians, the fiery sermons of cathedral preachers, the meticulous entries in local chronicles, and even the official decrees issued by the Strasbourg City Council, the extent of fatalities remains a subject of ongoing academic debate. Later accounts, often written years or even decades after the event, speak of hundreds dying, sometimes claiming 15 people perished each day at the plague's peak. Yet, the most immediate, contemporary records from the city of Strasbourg at the very time of the events are strikingly, unsettlingly silent on specific death tolls, or even on whether there were any fatalities at all. This historical ambiguity, this gap in the immediate record, only adds to the unsettling allure and the enduring mystery of the event. The Dancing Plague, arguably the last major outbreak of its kind in Europe, eventually faded as societies evolved. The specific belief systems that fueled such outbreaks waned, and communities gradually found different coping mechanisms for collective stress. But its legacy persists, a chilling, curious reminder of the intricate and often fragile connection between our minds and bodies, and the profound, sometimes terrifying, power of collective behavior under extreme duress. It continues to inspire books, songs, and art across various mediums, from John Waller's meticulously researched historical accounts to Peter Bruegel the Elder's vivid and unsettling engravings. The mystery persists, not because of a complete lack of evidence, but because it forces us to confront the inherent challenges in retrospectively diagnosing a complex behavioral phenomenon from centuries past. It is a powerful case study in the fragility of the human psyche when confronted with overwhelming stress and uncertainty. What aspect of the Dancing Plague do you find most haunting? Let me know in the comments. Share this video with your family and friends. Like, hype, subscribe, stay curious, clan.